After the release of Highway 61 Revisited, the controversy of Dylan switching from acoustic to electric continued to rise. Some audiences felt they sold out, while others loved his new material. This reached its peak during a famous concert in the Manchester Free Trade in 1966. During the concert, an audience member loudly shouted, "Judas!" Dylan responded by saying, "I don't believe you. You're a liar." He then turned to his band, instructing them to play like a Rolling Stone, and saying, "Play it fucking loud."
I don't believe you. You're a liar.
This exchange went down in legend and can be heard on the album The Bootleg Series Volume 4. Next album that Dylan will make would be Blonde on Blonde, an album that commonly contends with Highway 61 as to which is Dylan's masterpiece. Blonde on Blonde took Dylan in perhaps his most experimental direction yet. The album was Dylan's longest and was also one of the first double albums in rock music. There's much debate as to whether or not it was the first, as the Mothers of Invention album Freak Out was released around the same time, and no one actually knows the exact release date for either. Lyrics went in a much more literary direction this time, and while they remained surreal, the surrealness was often toned down compared to the previous albums. Blonde on Blonde is often considered to be one of Dylan's more mature efforts. The album opens on the song Rainy Day Woman 12 and 35, which is surprisingly quite different to the rest of the album. The song is much more fun and less somber than the other material, and also much less literary, considering that the lyrics are mainly based on just the silly pun involving marijuana. For the song, Dylan had the musicians switch their instruments to make the song sound more chaotic. Throughout the song, you can hear the musicians shout and laugh constantly. There are rumors that everyone got drunk prior to performing the song. This hasn't been confirmed as true, and is quite frequently debated on. Rainy Day Woman was the album's biggest hit, despite, or possibly because, of its chaotic nature. The first side contains Visions of Johanna, which is often considered to be Dylan's lyrical masterpiece, and sometimes his masterpiece in general. The song was apparently recorded, wait, never mind, that was a factual error. The song was apparently written during a blackout in New York City, which makes sense considering the overall tone of the lyrics. The song involves a miserable man walking through a city with his current lover Louise. He reflects on a woman named Johanna, and as to who Johanna is, it's up to you to really decide. While this sounds like a somewhat simple love song, Dylan kind of turns it into this complex epic filled with switching perspectives, symbolism, and satire. Beyond the simple sort of love story going on, the rest of the song is quite open to interpretation. Some believe that Johanna is just a woman who the protagonist misses, or some kind of ideal vision of perfection. Visions of Johanna is perhaps Dylan's most respected piece among literary critics. The song has a drugged and fractured feeling reflected in both the music and the lyrics. The piece was probably the most important one that contributed to Dylan's Nobel Prize. The album returns to more simple themes, with the song One of Us Must Know Sooner or Later. The song is somewhat notable within the context of the album, as it was the only recording from the New York sessions to be left on the album, with the rest of it being recorded in Nashville. This gives the song a bit of a grander tone than the rest of the album, with more instruments than most of the other tracks. The next track, I Want You, is another love song that contains more of a classic Dylan feel than the previous song. The song is also notable in terms of music, with a very upbeat and sentimental tone compared to the rest of the album. The album returns to the style of the surreal epic, with Stuck Inside the Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. Ironically, the song is one of the less blues influenced on the album, being more country rock in style. The song contains some similarities to Visions of Johanna that is more humorous in tone, and perhaps might be a bit of a spiritual successor to the song Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, which is quite satirical. The structure of the lyrics was so complex that Dylan had quite a lot of difficulty actually fitting it to the tempo, and he had to edit them and change them to make it fit with the 4/4 time. Interestingly, John didn't really dislike the song, and he felt that the lyrics were complex just for the sake of being complex. He wrote a parody called Stuck Inside of Lexicon for the Rogers Thesaurus Blues Again. The album does contain a blues tune with Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat, which is a satire on materialism, which was followed by the ballad Just Like a Woman, which is one of Dylan's most famous songs. The most notable song on the third side is the track Fourth Time Around. The song has a more jangly feel to it than the other songs in the album musically. The lyrics of the song involve a lover's quarrel, though the exact meaning of it, like most Dylan songs, is left up to interpretation. Many think that the song is about Dylan's relationship with Eddie Sedgwick, the title Fourth Time Around being their fourth time sleeping together, though Dylan has denied this. Another interesting thing of note is that the song is speculated to be a response to the classic Beatles song Norwegian Wood, as it follows a similar melody and similar lyrical themes, and a similar time signature. The final line, "I never asked for your crutch, now don't ask for mine," was interpreted by John Lennon as a warning about him. The final track on the album is Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, a spiritual successor of sorts to both Desolation Row and It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. It has the length and repetition of Desolation Row combined with the emotion of Baby Blue. The song takes up the entire fourth side of the album, being Dylan's longest song up to that point. Sad-Eyed Lady is often considered to be Dylan's greatest love song, being about his wife, Sarah Lowndes. After writing it, Dylan said it was the best song he had ever written, which is a statement that some do agree with. The song was recorded at 4 AM in the morning, and none of the band members actually knew how long the song was going to be. The drummer Kenny Buttery has said this about the recording. If you notice that record, that thing after the second chorus just starts building like crazy, and everybody's just peeking up because we thought, man, this is it. This is going to be the last chorus, and we've got to put everything into it we can. Then he played another harmonica solo and went back to another verse, and the dynamics had to drop back down to a verse kind of feel. After about 10 minutes of this thing, we're cracking up at each other like what we were doing. I mean, we peaked 5 minutes ago. Where do we go from here? Sad-Eyed Lady is considered to be another one of Dylan's masterpieces, and is one of his most analysed pieces among literary critics. The song marks the end of his songwriting peak, concluding his Electric trilogy that began with Bringing It All Back Home. The next album that Dylan released was John Wesley Harding, a much more simple album than three that had come before, both musically and lyrically. John Wesley Harding was a return to the acoustic guitar for Dylan, and Dylan has some country elements which will be explored further on his next album. In a 1968 interview, Dylan said, "There's no line you can stick your finger through, there's no hole in any of the stanzas, there's no blank filler, each line has something." As a result of this style of lyricism, the songs are far shorter and more concise. The longest track, The Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, was only 5.5 minutes, a pretty average length for a typical Dylan song. The most notable song on the album is All Along the Watchtower, which was mainly famous for Jimi Hendrix's cover version, which was released a year later. While the album wasn't as highly regarded as the three that came before it, it was still highly praised. Critics especially liked that Dylan made the opposite of the psychedelic music that was popular at the time. Dylan's last album in the 60s was Nashville Skyline, perhaps the biggest departure yet. The album was only 27 minutes. The country elements from John Wesley Harding were front and center this time around. The songwriting was even more simplified. The brilliance of Visions of Johanna, A Sad-Eyed Lady, had been replaced with incredible lyrics such as, "Oh me, oh my, love that, country pie."
Oh me, oh my, love that country pie.
The album was also pretty happy and upbeat. Despite the album being pretty much the ultimate fuck you, the album managed to be successful and acclaimed. Interestingly, the album contains some very good singing from Dylan, who isn't really known as the world's greatest singer. The great singing and melodies are perhaps why this album manages to be so good, despite lacking everything that made his previous releases so fantastic. If Dylan could make an album like this and still get acclaim, would this mean that his good streak could last forever? Unfortunately, it wouldn't, and that was demonstrated by his next album.